Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. This is Annika Jackson with Your Brand Amplified, and I'm super excited to have Whitney Kroneberger here today. Whitney, I don't even remember how we connected initially, but it's really fantastic to have you here. And I'm really excited for you to share your journey into entrepreneurship, how you help women, and what that stemmed from. So Thank you for being here. And let's get into your story. You worked for a nonprofit before you went out on your own.
I did. Yes. Just real quick. Thank you so much for having me here. This is such a huge honor. I did. I worked for a nonprofit. So I had graduated college in 2004. And the guy I was dating at the time, and is now my husband, had an internship with a nonprofit in Colorado Springs. We were living up north of Denver at that time. And I knew that I wanted to marry him. He didn't really know that about me, but I said, I'll just follow you down to Colorado Springs and you can go work for Compassion and I'll go work for Young Life. And so I applied to a nonprofit called Young Life, and they help introduce adolescents to Jesus Christ and help them grow in their faith. And I didn't know anything about the mission. I didn't know what they did. And I applied for an entry-level position in finance and sat down in that interview with who would be my supervisor and then the hiring manager. And I interviewed for that role. And I remember thinking while I was sitting there, gosh, this is such a cool organization that I'm hearing about for the first time. And the person who was interviewing me, the hiring manager, I thought I would really love to have her job at some point someday. She's amazing, but I would really love to have her job. And so they called me a couple days later and offered me the position. And so I was at Young Life for about 10 years working with them.
Yeah, and Young Life has a lot of programs for student athletes, right? I think I remember
they do,
high school hearing about Young Life and programs and
Yeah, they do. They have a lot of different types of programs for a lot of different ages: middle school, high school, college, young adults, single moms, all sorts of things. And one of the things that I really grew to love about the organization is the way that they provide camping experiences for kids and just sort of give them this really luxurious camping experience that is kind of a 5-star resort. You don't see it a lot of other places, but allows them to feel served and to feel known and create safety for them to have conversations and meet new people. So that was incredible. I worked at the headquarters. It happens to be located in Colorado Springs, and it was pre-COVID. So most people came in to work every day. You know, there's 300-400 people that worked in that service center. And I started out in finance and knew again that I wanted that hiring manager's job. And so I quickly just started looking for opportunities in human resources to ask questions and get experience. And I just kept saying, what would it look like to create a track for that role? And started just meeting with people from human resources. And about 2.5 years into working for Young Life, I moved into an entry-level position in HR. And then a few years after that, took over the role of hiring coordinator in HR. And so that primarily was working with the C-suite level executives, hiring managers, directors that were building out their teams and needed help thinking strategically about putting people in the right positions, and then also obviously finding the right candidates that were a good fit for their team, but that also had the same values that we did as a nonprofit. And so it was a dream job. I mean, it was an absolute dream. I never thought I'd leave. I planned to get pins for my, service awards all the way up through 50 years of service. I feel like the Lord had other plans for me, but that was an absolute dream of a job. And it was very intentional on my part where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do there. So it was fun being a part of it.
I love that you got to experience this organization that you didn't know anything about and start in one place, but create a roadmap for yourself to get into something you really were more passionate about.
Yeah.
And an area to serve more fully with your skill set.
Yes.
I've also done that where at a magazine publishing company, they had the secretary position was open or the receptionist position. And this is back before
when they still call them secretaries, right? Yeah.
So, but I knew I was going to end up in marketing, but I had to take what role was open and then I did other roles as well with my eye on the same thing. So I love it when people can find, and that's something that I think is a really important lesson for anybody on here who's not necessarily looking to get into entrepreneurship or might want to build their skills in a different area than what they're known to do, right? Find that organization that fits your values and figure out how you can get involved.
Yeah.
And then how you can create a path for yourself to do what you really want to do. So I love that you did that. Yeah.
So good. And, I do think that with the way that I see entrepreneurship and the way that I engage with my clients is I see entrepreneurship as more of a state of mind than just having your own LLC, right? Because it really is taking responsibility for your position and wanting to make it the best possible role that you can. And I think that is kind of lost in our culture right now. We feel really entitled, and maybe we even go to college and we graduate and think I'm entitled to a job and I should be getting paid really well. And we want to make a lot of money for a little work. And that's sort of the idea that a lot of people have about entrepreneurship is, oh, if I'm working for myself, I get all the profit, right? And it's such a huge misconception because it's almost backwards, right? If you don't work, you don't eat. And we tend to, as entrepreneurs, do the 24/7 thing. And I see clients every single day who are absolutely burned out because they're working so hard. And it's not just a job. It's not just a role. It is their life. And it is such a beautiful gift to be able to be an entrepreneur. But it is vastly misunderstood if you don't know what you're walking into and if you do have misconceptions about it. And I think that it was great, like you were talking about, getting those skill sets, being in human resources and understanding how to engage with people and how to listen well and how to ask right questions. Mm-hmm. And that really set me up to be able to understand what type of person and business owner I wanted to be. And even before I got into coaching, I was in the network marketing space for about 4 years and built a 6-figure business with that. And there is an aspect of entrepreneurship that's like, you got to do the grunt work. You got to engage with people. You have to be friendly. You have to go and, it is all encompassing. And I think that people, especially young people, just look at it thinking, oh, I just want to go work for myself. I don't want anyone to tell me what to do or how to do it. And they just have this glorified version of it. Not that all the time.
Yeah. Everything you said right there, like, yes.
Yeah.
Said it so eloquently as well. And I love the fact that your HR background has helped you, you had to work with the executives figuring out who are the right people for their teams.
Yes.
And that's something that is also really hard for entrepreneurs to figure out. Often I think we hire, we know this person can do this. Yes, they might be able to do that skill set. They might be somebody but that doesn't mean that they're the right fit for your organization. So I want you to now talk a little bit about what prompted you to leave this organization that you loved, that you thought you were going to be at for your whole career, and you saw that there was something else that you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it was not easy. I feel like there was about 2 years before I ended up leaving where I started to get this feeling of, I want freedom. I want to manage my time. I want to take back control of my own time. I had started having kids. I had 2 kids while I was at Young Life, and I had done the 3-month maternity leave and went back to work and figured out all of the details with that. And it was not easy. I cried every day to work. And it wasn't that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, because I knew I didn't want to be full-time at home with them at that point. But I did feel like somebody else is dictating my life for me. And I wanted to be able to interact with the organization of Young Life, but on my terms. And so I think there's 2 different kinds of people. There are people that need to work for someone else. They want somebody to give them instruction and tell them what to do and give them direction and clock in and clock out. And I get that, especially after being an entrepreneur. But I started to get this yearning for, I think that I can go out and dictate my own schedule and have an unlimited cap on what I'm able to accomplish. And it's going to take a lot of faith in, I believe the Lord has asked me to go into and to step into, and also belief that I can do it. I'm qualified and that I have the grit and the discipline necessary to accomplish this. And so somebody had approached me about a network marketing gig, and I fell in love with the products and I started sharing it, and it very quickly grew. It quickly grew beyond what I could have imagined at that point. I had tripled my salary that I was making at Young Life in about 2 years, and I had made 6 figures. I got the car, went on the vacations, all the things. And actually, to this day, I really love the network marketing community, and I do feel like it's a great way for people to make money. The reason that I decided to walk away from that was simply because I liked the aspects of coaching within that role, but I didn't love the person-to-person sales of products and the transaction of products all the time. And there's a lot of unhealth, I think, in network marketing that is being rewritten right now, and people are talking about the hustle and about the hey girl messages, and I've got friends that are just leading the charge in that. But leaving Young Life and having that entrepreneurial spirit, knowing that I could create something for myself, got a little bit of a taste in it because you're a 1099, but you still get a 1099, and then decided to go full in to coaching and do it all on my own. And my first year I made 6 figures in that too. And it's those moments that I look back and I think we have lost the ability to dream about what's possible in our own lives with the people that we have around us. I believe with the God that I serve and the power that he has given me to show up in the world, and having him in my back pocket, and the assignment that I've been given for this season and the message that I have for women. But I also I'm aware that it's not for everybody. It is something that does require a lot of internal motivation and grit and determination to create something, and to fail a lot and to be disappointed a lot. And it takes just the next level of thought to be able to kind of step into entrepreneurship in a healthy way, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about your specific niche, right? Because you are specifically a life coach for Christian female entrepreneurs.
I am.
What does that look like for you on a day-to-day basis?
Oh man, this is my favorite thing. This is the best thing. I love it. So when I was in the network marketing space, and even when I was in Young Life, I started to notice themes in the women that I was engaging with consistently. And some of those things that I started to see come out after I had been certified as a life coach, and I was just doing general life coaching, I started to kind of pull out these themes. And they revolved around identity and knowing who we are based on what we do and and our output, what we've created and achieved. I started to see a huge lack of boundaries because we as women tend to feel really guilty about sort of putting our foot down and creating space between us and someone else. And then the idea of mental boundaries and mental real estate, allowing just anything and everything to just land in our brains and we have to do something with it. I think that's a huge thought error that we experience as female entrepreneurs, as we are responsible for everyone's thoughts and emotions. I started seeing that women that were entrepreneurs were very lonely. And part of that was because we feel like we just have a lot of responsibility to build a career and we've got something to prove. And so when we do that for so long, we tend to isolate and we lose some of those deeper connections with other women and friends. We lose connections in our marriages or partnerships. And we find ourselves in positions of success where we've made the money and then we're asking ourselves, was it worth it? And so I started to see that women had the money. Making money was no longer an issue for them. It became pretty easy, but they didn't have the community around them that they once had. And then I started to just see that in relation to that loneliness, marriages were falling apart because there was this kind of idea that, okay, we're supposed to be partners, but if you're the head of the household as the man, then what does that mean for me? And I'm an entrepreneur also, but I make more money than you. So should you be a stay-at-home dad? And I feel like the enemy is kind of looking at marriages and trying to pull them apart, because if he can break apart a home, break apart a marriage, break apart the family, then the business comes next. Because what happens to people when they see all the success, you put them on this pedestal and you think that they're doing incredible things and they couldn't do anything wrong, but their home life is it's a dumpster fire, right? And so I really feel so passionate about creating a foundation at home that's unshakable, so that if your business fails, or if people are scrutinizing you in public, or if somebody has something awful to say about you, or you've got to go fire somebody, or whatever that looks like, you have a safe place at home to come back to where you can land, and your identity is not in your business. It's in who you are, your mission and your values. So those are the women that I am really passionate about working with, and it was easy for me to find them because they are plentiful. They're everywhere.
And what were some of the techniques that you used? Did you create Facebook groups? Did you go within the networks that you already had and say, hey, I'm going to start doing some workshops or some one-on-one coaching? What was that like? Because it sounded like you found success very quickly.
I did. Yeah. You know, I will say that is one of the areas that as an entrepreneur has always been a weak area for me, is how to brand myself and put myself out there. I tend to think that I'm sort of a visionary and I think big picture, and everything and I am not very detailed. And so it's good in some areas and then can really hurt me in others. And so first thing I did before I ever had a client was I hired a coach. I hired a business coach to help me decide how to approach my business and set up contracts and set up a website. And so what I really started out doing was just adding value to my audience as much as I possibly could. It came from a deep belief and a truth that I had that I already was a coach and that I had something to offer. And it came from a confidence that I believe comes from the Lord, that when he gave me this calling and said, I want you to go help these women because I'm seeing a need here, that's where my confidence came from. And so I did start a Facebook group and started just coaching in there for free and put a bunch of people in that group. I started showing up on Instagram a lot more. I was marketing myself as a coach and just said, hey, if you're looking for someone to help you navigate your mind and some of the obstacles that are hitting you, you can have me right now for free. I've coached for free. I think I hired a coach in March of 19, and I didn't have my first paying client until September of that year. And so that whole time period was me sitting in the uncomfortable belief that it was going to work because I had paid my coach a lot of money to help me build a business and I was not seeing the fruit from that. And I do think that that is one thing that if I hadn't had the belief that it was going to work, that would have been a really hard time. The other thing that kind of helped me through that period of time was just knowing the people that I wanted to talk to, the woman that I wanted to serve, speaking really clearly to her and getting clear on what her thoughts were, what her problems were that she was experiencing, how she felt on a daily basis, why I was the person to help her. Why I really believed that I had something of value to teach her or to help her come to realize. That was through asking a lot of questions, typically. Creating a process out of just the things that I already knew about coaching. So having some tools in my tool belt and then showing them the value that I could offer them and the result that they could have by working with me. And that came from me hiring a coach and understanding what that relationship looked like using some of my own stories before I was talking about my own personal clients. So there was kind of this learning curve for me in that I relied very heavily on my business coach to give me guidance through that period of time. But really, I think the core things were knowing that I could do it for free and it was still valuable, knowing who I was talking to. I did get clients from my kind of warm market, the people that I was already serving. My first couple clients sort of came out of that. The next sort of 6 months after, like into the new year of 2020, a lot of those clients came from a network that I had kind of plugged myself into with another coach that was doing something similar to me. And so networking was a huge aspect of that I definitely underrated when I first got into entrepreneurship, because I just sort of thought, you get in it and you do it by yourself and you do it as best you can. But I do think that when we tend to drop our pride and connect with others and lift one another up and showcase other people, man, it just turns around and blesses us even more when we're willing to showcase someone else. And so working with another coach and coaching for other coaches just tapped me into these massive networks. That was a big deal for me.
Fantastic. So you're talking about being really clear on who you are, what your goals are, who you want to serve.
Yes.
And networking.
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
Definitely. Are you ready to take your brand to new heights? Join the Brand Amplifier for Entrepreneurs program. Learn how to build, elevate, and amplify your brand with a comprehensive 10-module course. Learn more about it and other ways to implement our strategies at fullcapacitymarketing.com. Click on EFCM Learning Hub for more information. Can't wait to help you amplify your brand. You have a full-time coaching business. You meet one-on-one. You also have masterminds. You also have a podcast.
Yes.
So I'd love for you to talk through the ways that people can work with you. And then I want to get into some other questions that I have for you.
Okay, perfect. I love it. So when I first started coaching, I was only doing one-on-one coaching. I would meet with clients every week, and we would meet for about 6 months. This was my contract when I started. I still do that, but I have limited time to be able to take all the clients that I'd really want to. So I have a few one-on-one spots that I always keep open. And my big push right now is for the mastermind. It's called The Well. Very strategically called The Well. I think that Jesus used wells in the Bible as a theme all over the place. It's where women gathered. It's where they talked about really hard things. It's where all those intimate conversations happened. But it was also a place to be refreshed and to get the water that they needed. And so The Well is a 6 and 7 figure earning Christian female entrepreneur mastermind. It's only for women who have established businesses, who are looking for a community that they can show up as themselves, drop the shame, lose the guilt of being a mom and being a business owner. But it really is a community that is created to talk about the issues in life, not business. So I've seen a lot of other business coaches put on these masterminds, and you kind of come in and you learn how to do the email funnels and the marketing strategies. And that, as I've said before, is not my strategy. That's not what I'm great at. But what I do believe is important is shedding light on the important areas in their personal lives that are keeping them from showing up in their businesses as the person that they want to be. Yeah. And so I find that women who have experienced success in their businesses are looking for other women to say, oh, you're going through this too. Oh, you always feel like a failure. Oh, people think that because you've made this amount of money, you don't have any fears or doubts or insecurities. And really, that's as far from the truth as you can get. And I think there's a different conversation that happens when you've created a 6 or 7 figure business. And so that is what The Well is for. And then I do have a podcast that is so much fun. It's called The Original Female Entrepreneur, and it is based on the Proverbs 31 woman from the Bible. And so we talk about everything from life as a Christian female entrepreneur and marriage and parenting and finances. And it's just been a really fun project. I think we are inching towards episode 100, but we've got a few more to get there. So we've been doing it for a few years now. And so that's a huge joy of mine as well.
Yeah. And what a great way to connect with other female entrepreneurs.
Yes.
We can, some might be clients, some might have people to refer to you. You might want to use some tools and things that they're doing. So it's one of my favorite things about podcasting is how we get to expand our networks so vastly and meet great, amazing people who we wouldn't necessarily have met otherwise.
Yes. Yeah. So true. I love that.
Yeah. And it really strikes me, this is something that so many women go through. And it's as you build up your career, you start your company and you get, like you said, you get to that 6, 7 figures, but then you're thinking, what am I not doing? Am I not pouring into my family? Are they feeling neglected? How am I showing up? And then that can affect your sleep, your anxiety levels, everything else. And it's hard to find the right group of women to have these conversations with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And one of the things that you like to talk about, because I know when I talk to people about branding, I always talk about what's your purpose, your mission, your vision, your values, how are you showing up? And you talk about your purpose versus your assignment.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that you mentioned early on. You said, God had a different assignment for me.
Yes.
That I realized that, and so you took that into your pivot. So can you talk a little bit about what is the difference between your purpose and your assignment?
Yeah. This was something that I think in general, everybody's asking, what am I here for? What am I supposed to be doing? What's my purpose in life? And that's such a vague question. And I feel like so many people take it and say, if I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, that I'm lost. And it kind of creates just distance between who we are and what we're supposed to be doing. And we don't know, where our identity is and how we're supposed to be known. So how I define those two things is I really believe your purpose is the skills and abilities that you were created with and that you were born with, the things that you have just innately been given that you are great at, the things that you can kind of show up and talk about and be a part of that don't take a lot of effort, that are sort of just neutral for you. Those are just the things that no one can take from you, that you'll always have with you, like the value that you naturally add to the world, the way that people are drawn to you for those reasons, like what you are giving to others and what others are getting from you. I think that is what your purpose is. Your assignment can change. Your assignment is kind of whatever you are being asked to do or what you're being called to or what your job is in this specific season. And so I think that's where we can kind of get a little muddy as we say, if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to in this season, then I'm not like sitting in my purpose or fulfilling my purpose. And I think that is a misconception because that tends to leave us feeling like we're doing something wrong. And I really personally don't believe that there's just this black and white, like you're either on the path or you're not. I really believe that whatever you are doing, even when I was a young life, was setting me up for success for entrepreneurship. And my assignment in that season at Young Life was to be there and serve well and listen and learn. And I was a baby. I mean, I was making, when I started, I think offered $11.32 an hour. I didn't end making a lot of money there either, but the proximity that I had to people who knew a lot more than I did, who were so much wiser, I got to sit in conversations and hear how their brain worked and what was important to them and how they lived their life outside of work. And that was extremely valuable. And so I may not have been taking home a lot of cash, but the lessons that I learned there were extremely valuable. That was my assignment for that season. My assignment now is, it's very clear to me that I need to be pulling women into the well, that this is a really important calling, that there is a need for it. And so 100% of my energy is going into that. You know, paralleled with that is my job as a mom. I've got 3 kids and I, for a long time, was taking care of my dad. He was ill. And so we were taking care of him at home. My mom and I were for a long time. And so my job as a wife and a mother and a follower of Jesus parallels my job and my assignment here right now. And so I think that one of the things that gives me peace and contentment on a day-to-day basis is knowing where I'm going and how that is a part of my purpose, but that the season that I'm in currently is my assignment right now, and it's a good thing. So I can be content today and have peace today, knowing there's still more for me and I'm not behind. I'm still going to accomplish things and write the book and go on stage and do all those things. But currently for today, I know that I am completing and I am being faithful with the assignment that I'm given right now.
I just got chills. You're so eloquent.
Oh, thank you.
And it's funny because I was just up, actually, I spoke at a conference at Kingdom Builders Church in Oakland, California, and I was talking to the women about your purpose. And it's a church that does a lot with second chance individuals. But then there's also a lot of people who go to the church who have had amazing careers, right? And have amazing careers. And so it's kind of a mix of people. And I was there to talk about your personal branding, like how you show up and how that needs to be who you are every day, no matter if you're at work or, so I was sharing stories and one person said, I feel like your purpose can change. And I was like, not that your purpose changes, because I know what my purpose is here on earth. But exactly what you're saying, the assignment that I have at any one given time changes. And I think that's another thing we get caught up in. When you get to 6 or 7 figures, you feel like you have to live in this one area. But then sometimes it is important to take a step back and say, you know what, I can take a little bit less money this month because part of what I need to do right now is understand my assignment and making sure that my daughter continues on her path and that she feels fully supported by me in everything that she does. My daughter is probably on the opposite side of yours. She's in high school. She wants to do. And so I'm preparing her for driving and then college and all of that side of stuff. But that is much more important than anything else I can do. And that's so important too, to understand, to know your identity so that you can say yes to that assignment without the guilt and without the anxiety on a day-to-day basis. You know who you are, you know what you've been created for. And so when that assignment comes or when those opportunities come, it's like, of course, I'm going to pour all of my energy into her. She is my number one job right now. It's easy to say yes to those things when you understand who you are and what you're working towards. It's the times that we get caught up in what other people dictate or what other people say about us. That's when it gets all muddy. Exactly. And that's when we have to step back and say, you know what? This is your assignment for me.
That's right.
This isn't something I can, let's figure out a way to make this work so that it or whatever you need to do there to stay in your purpose and your assignment for that time. Yeah, because I have no doubt you're going to write the book. You're going to be on all the stages. You're going to do all the things. But knowing that where you are right now and what you need to pour into your family and into your business, that's a really beautiful way to be.
Agreed. Yep, totally agree with that.
Yeah. So what is soul rest? Because that's something you also talk to your women about.
I do, man. It is, oh gosh. I remember when I first started coaching, I realized that I was talking to high achieving, ambitious women that didn't understand how to rest well. So I don't know if you do Enneagram or if you have done your, okay, so I'm a 7, so I'm a lot of fun most of the time. The older I get, the more introverted I become, but I am really fantastic at resting. I mean, I do it really well. I can unplug. I can go on the vacation. I'm not tempted by work when I'm on a vacation or when I'm in another city or with my kids outside of my home. It's very easy. That comes really natural to me. And so I just figured when I was talking to the Lord about this, I was like, here's the thing. If I really believe that you didn't make a mistake in creating me, then there's something that you had in mind when you created me to be this way that you wanted to give as a gift to other people. But what I realized was the women that I was working with, mostly 3s and 1s, and what I realized was they're all very driven, but they don't know how to shut their brains off or clock out of their mind after they leave their phone or computer. And so even when their computer isn't open, they're laying in bed, they're eating dinner with their family, and their mind is still working. And so I started researching just self-care, but I didn't like the term. It's so trendy and everyone's talking about it in bubble baths and vacations and all these things. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But why is it important to do that? And I believe that what happens is when we get so busy and when we are bombarded with culture and scrutiny and mom guilt and we're being pulled in 100 directions, that's when we tend to believe that we aren't capable of doing it all and we feel overwhelmed. And it's not because of our assignment, being a wife and a mom, or being a business owner. It usually is because of a number of other things that we're saying yes to that we don't have any business in saying yes to. And what happens is we say yes to all those things and we want to be on the board and volunteer here and go do this. And our body and our soul start to move at a different pace. And our body is moving really quickly and our soul gets left behind because we're not actually resting well. It's not about sleep. It's not about being quiet. It really is about the time that we are taking to remind ourselves why we're doing the things that we're doing. It is allowing our soul to catch up with our bodies. And usually that takes place when we are intentional with time outside of work. And I find that creativity and inspiration blossom when we step outside of what we're currently doing. So for me, that looks like a vacation, or that looks like 24 hours outside of my home at a hotel somewhere or with friends. But it is a very intentional practice that, in my opinion, is a necessity in order to create a business that's sustainable. Otherwise, burnout is inevitable. And so when I think about soul rest, I think about the things that we do on a daily basis or monthly basis, yearly basis that give our bodies time to slow down where our soul can catch up and we stay aligned. Mm-hmm. And so I had created, there's a link in my Instagram bio that's called A Guide to Soul Rest. And in there is a soul care menu. So it's things that you can think about that give you rest, that you personally can kind of customize it for yourself, that you personally can do that allow your soul to catch up with your body. But sometimes it's just like, I just need 5 minutes to do it. Sometimes it's a weekend. But there are things that help you kind of reset and realign. But the problem is that we don't do those things, do too many things in a row, burn out, and then we're like, okay, well, now my husband gave me 3 days off away from the kids. And so now I get to go do it, but I haven't prepared anything. And and then I just think about, I'll just catch up on work while I'm out or whatever it is. And so we often don't create intentional time to take care of our souls well. So anyway, that soul rest guide can help to kind of facilitate some ideas so you can think about how to do this well. The last thing I'll say about it is there's a book that is called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. And two of the things that he talks about in there, the first thing is that love, joy, and peace are not compatible with hurry. You can't hurry up and love someone or hurry up and have peace, right? And so when we are constantly in a hurry, then the things that are the most important for us to be doing on a daily basis, we're not actually able to tap into. The other thing that he talks about is that when we think about the way that Jesus lived his life on this earth, half of his time was spent going away to be with the Father. So he would feed the 5,000. He would have a sermon and speak to, hundreds of thousands of people. And then as he's on the road or after that, what does he do? He goes away and he is alone with God. And I think that we overlook the importance of spending time alone and also spending time in prayer. And so I think that when we look at Jesus, when we look at the way, the truth, and the life that he is, his way was, this is what John Mark Comer talks about, his way was getting away by himself and with the Lord. And that is where his soul was rested. And that's why sleep is not the cure for being burned out. We never can physically catch up on enough sleep to not be burned out because it's a mental issue. So one of the things that I think is important is just finding time to rest our minds more than our bodies.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to look that book up as well.
It's really good.
So I don't want to give too much more away about your techniques and how you work with people. I really want you to go and explore for themselves. So I'll put your podcast in the show notes. Also, where's the best place for people to find you? Do you want them to go to social media? Do you want them to go to your website?
Yeah, I love social media. So for the most part, but I am on Instagram. It's at Whitney Kroneberger, and there's links to all of my offers in there as well. So that's a great place. But my website's whitneykroneberger.com, and there's lots of information about one-on-one coaching and the well and things like that. So either of those places are great. I especially love messages and talking with people about what they're walking through. And I feel like a lot of my efforts right now are trying to figure out if they're a right fit for what I have to offer and then pointing them to other people and other resources. And so send me a message, an email or whatever it is. I like engaging with people. It's one of my favorite things.
Fantastic. And I always love to ask, I know we've talked a little bit about the Proverbs 31 woman, but I always ask if you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, any last bit of advice that you'd like to share with our audience.
Oh, that's a really good question. Oh man, there's so many things to choose from. One of the verses that I've loved since I remember when it became my favorite verse. I was in high school. I was in choir, actually. I grew up in a really small school, kind of a bubble of a community. And Philippians 2:5-11 is my favorite verse, but it talks about how Jesus became a man and took on the qualities of a man, and is my favorite verse because when you look at all of the different things that people worship in our culture now, it's all about serving or worshiping a higher being or a God that is on this pedestal. But the God that we serve as Christians, Jesus Christ, came down to this earth and became a man. Mm-hmm. And he went through the trials and he was tempted in the ways that we were and that we are, experienced what it's like to be a human, and still was God. And so I love that verse for that reason, because I think that people, when they think about what it means to have a relationship with Jesus, it feels like a lot of space, like a lot of room between who we are and who Jesus Christ is. And I really think that that's not, yes, he is sovereign. Yes, he is God. Yes, he is holy and should be worshiped, and also took it upon himself to become a man. And so that just is something that I love so much. So Philippians 2:5-11 is one that I would recommend looking at for sure.
Awesome. Whitney, thank you so much for sharing who you are and your testimony with us today. I really loved our conversation. You are truly phenomenal, so well-spoken. And I know that everybody who works with you and who gets to listen to you gets a lot out of it. You seem like a very old soul to me.
Thank you. Oh man, that's just made my whole day right there. This has been such a fun conversation, and I just appreciate you allowing me to come and just create space for this. This has been a huge honor. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you to all of our listeners and viewers for coming to another episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to check out Whitney's podcast and The Original Female Entrepreneur. I'll have it linked in the show notes, so you can also check that out and get some really great advice. And I will be back again in a few days with another amazing expert to shine light on your business. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.